Back here on SportsLine, talking about the Titans and their organized team activities still going on at St. Thomas Sports Park. Get set for mandatory minicamp next week, which will be interesting to see, as we've documented throughout the spring, really, on News Channel 5 and here on SportsLine as well. A lot of the Titans veterans staying away this offseason. It's all voluntary up to this point, and those guys, Derrick Henry thinks he gets better work being down in Dallas with his personal trainer in terms of being ready to go. And I'm not sure I'm going to argue with that if you check out his Instagram page and some of the videos that he puts in. I'm not worried about Derrick Henry being in shape when he comes back, and I'm not worried about him knowing the offense or anything like that. He doesn't have the leadership role that, say, maybe a Ryan Tannehill does. We've seen some guys up front on the offensive line that haven't been around necessarily at times throughout the course of this summer. We've seen guys on the defense not be around at periods of time. Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, some of those guys. Will they be here next week? It's mandatory. That's the word. They face a fine if they aren't in the building next week that they didn't face at any other point throughout the course of the spring. So you'd assume that you'll see a lot of those guys on campus at the facility next week. And that'll be interesting to see them come, to see their thoughts about the offseason and everything that comes with it. To this point of the offseason, a lot of things have gone on, but it's trying to kind of put together everything that's happened and where this team stands right now from a coaching perspective, from a player personnel perspective, where the rookies stand and all of that. We tried to tackle some of those questions on the Electric Power Company Sunday Sports Central with our good friend and host of Outkick 360, Jonathan Hutton. We bring in our Titans insider, Jonathan Hutton, host of Outkick 360, which makes its return to Nashville radio June 13th on 94.9. Jonathan, I've been following you guys all the way along, but it's going to be great to hear you back on terrestrial radio again. Congrats to you and the crew.
Yeah, we finally have an answer to the number one question that I get about the show. When can we hear Outkick on Nashville radio? We are back a week from tomorrow, 2 to 5 p.m., 94.9 The Fan. Thanks for saying that, Steve, because we're really excited, myself, Chad, and Paul, about having Outkick 360 back on the Nashville airwaves.
And, of course, just like you do here, you break down the Titans a ton on that program. I'll tell you a guy who really stood out to me this week with his demeanor, and that's Nicholas Petit-Frere. The Titans' struggles drafting offensive linemen have been well documented the last couple of years. But here's a guy who had big game experience at Ohio State. And this week we learned he took all the other undrafted rookie linemen out to dinner. When you see that maturity and experience, have the Titans finally hit on an O-lineman here?
I hope so. I mean, that's a nice $900 spent by the former Buckeye for sure. The maturity level is there. He's among the nicest young men you can come across. The Titans don't need him to play very nice on the field or when the pads come on. The good news for Petit-Frere is he's coming off of a full season at Ohio State. And compare that to Dylan Radins, who played in just one game at North Dakota State the season prior to joining the Titans last year. This training camp is going to be a great proving ground for the rookie because they're going to have joint practices against the Bucks and against the Cardinals. And, Steve, that's where we'll really know if he's on track. But the Titans need a break there at right tackle, that's for sure.
No question about it. In terms of the offense as a whole, we've talked a lot about the new guys and the dynamic between Todd Downing and Tim Kelly. So now I ask you, who's the most important person, player or coach, to the Titans' offensive success in 2022?
I immediately want to say Derrick Henry again, but because the offense, I think, still goes through him. But this is about Ryan Tannehill. He helped them to get 12 wins last season without Henry and for a good slate of games without Lewan or with Brown. But when the playoff time rolled around, crunch time, he wasn't good. And because of that, they wasted that excellent defensive performance in the postseason. We've detailed the offensive changes. Todd Downing now has Tim Kelly helping him with the passing offense. But ultimately, Tannehill has to perform in the playoffs. He's the most important piece.
All right, defense was much improved last year, but who's the guy on that side of the ball that will be the biggest key to them taking another step this season?
This is tougher for me than offense, but if I'm picking one, it's Bud Dupree, who turned it on throughout the final month of last season. They're paying him. They're now paying Harold Landry. Dupree should be expected to come in and be consistent from the start of the season with the outside pressure. And really, that is the most important aspect to this defense. However that comes, but we start on the edge. And I look for Dupree to start the way that last season ended in January.
Yeah, fully healthy ACL helps him out there. Jonathan Hutton, thanks for the knowledge as always.
Thank you, Steve.